Hi everybody, hi. Welcome to this live. I wanted to talk today a little bit about burnout and in particular burnout in equestrians for both professional and amateur or recreational riders, because I think it's important that we recognise what burnout is. It's not stress, it's not depression, it's something different. And riding when you're burnt out is not going to help you. It's not going to help your horse. And it's probably going to make life really, really difficult. So let's think about, first of all, the pressures of a professional rider and then the pressures of a recreational or amateur rider. And then we can kind of pull them both together and realize why people get into this situation of burnout, because it's so easy to fall into. So if we think about a professional rider, well, first of all, when they're starting out, then it's quite a challenge in itself to build a reputation. Most people who enter riding professionally don't have enormous financial backing. So they've got to find their own finances. They're very often under immense pressure to work really, really hard, very, very long hours. And the profit margins on what they're doing is usually absolutely minimal. So there's some of the pressures just immediately. Now, factor into that the fact that when professionals are starting out, they often take on horses that other people might not want to take on. They might be a little bit more challenging, a little bit more feisty. Those are the type of horses that you risk injury with even more so than the others. So as young professionals, you've got that. And obviously an injury means you can't work, so you can't get paid. Then you've got building a reputation, slowly creeping by, getting the reputation built up, getting more higher quality horses in so that you can get out and about, you can do higher level competitions, you can be seen by people, by owners. And then you enter a phase where really you're still building a reputation. So you've still got all that pressure, because let's not forget that equestrians of all disciplines and all walks of life are perfectionists to a fault. So you've got all of that kind of pressure. But now if you're maybe expanding your business, maybe you've got people working for you. So you need to be able to maintain the yard now, because people's livelihoods depend on you as well as everything else. Think about then having owners. The owners may not be the most appreciative. Very often you have lovely, lovely people who are owners, but there are also people who have just too high expectations of their horses. They put that pressure onto the rider. You can have quite difficult owners as well, as we can all imagine. So, you know, there's all of that. Riders, professional equestrians, rarely take time off, because when they're not riding, then they're either doing some kind of accounts or they're there training and teaching other people. They might have to do their own mucking out, or they might have staff. So we're building up a massive, massive pressure cooker, really. It's a really difficult job, especially when other people probably regard it as one of these dream jobs. So it is very difficult to make your mark, very difficult to maintain. And, you know, equestrians are human beings, so they've also got the normal pressures of family, extended family. They may do a second job even just to make ends meet. You might have other kinds of pressures. You know, life sends you curveballs. Occasionally there's illnesses, there's injury, there's people who need your help. You've got to go and help them. You're not working perhaps as hard for yourself as you would like to do. So it's surprising that anyone does it. let's have a think about the pressures of an amateur or recreational rider. And sometimes these overlap with the professionals. So very often the amateur or the recreational rider uses riding, obviously as a hobby, as a release, to maintain sanity after a day at work or a day with the family, or, you know, the kids have been screaming at one another. Or maybe it's the extended family that are driving you potty. So lots and lots of pressures outside of equestrianism, putting equestrianism a little bit on a pedestal, wanting that area of life to be a walk in the park, wanting it to be easy, wanting it to be stress-free, and very often it's not. It could be that, you know, your horse is injured, or that you're injured, or your horse is growing older, or your horse is really young and you can't actually ride. There might be pressures of where you are in a livery yard, especially in wintertime. Maybe there's less opportunity to ride. Maybe you feel that people on the yard, or people that you know, are getting on, they're doing stuff, they're progressing, and you're Cinderella and you're not. So that's another pressure as well. Again, you've got all the normal life pressures that everybody has. This expectation for the riding to be the thing that allows you to relax, enjoy, be happy, very often doesn't work out like that. So we get these two types of people, the professional and the amateur, who are burning themselves out for different trigger reasons, but finding that they are experiencing the same kind of symptoms and the same kind of thought processes. So let's just have a little think about what burnout is, and then we can start to unravel it and think about how we can get rid of it. So burnout is very different from stress. People who are stressed have really high levels of the stress hormone cortisol. And you know what stress feels like. It's not pleasant, it's not nice, you're agitated, you know, you're tense. But with stress, if you remove that trigger, so whether that triggers work or an aspect of work or somebody at work, when you remove yourself from that, maybe you go on holiday, the stress might take a few days to just dissipate and tail off a little bit, but it does go. Whereas in burnout, you take yourself away from that situation, or you remove that stressor, and that feeling of burnout continues. And that's because you've almost overextended yourself. You've not now got this high level of the stress hormone, you've got a really low level. You've gone beyond that. You've had the stress, you've had the high levels of agitation and irritation and so on, but you've gone even beyond it. So you've got very low levels. And this means that you're going to be really, really exhausted. And you're exhausted mentally, physically, and emotionally. So let's have a little think about how people feel when they're in the middle of burnout, so that you can recognize it either in yourself, or maybe you can recognize it in somebody else and you can help them out. So very often when people are burnt out, they'll be really irritable. So it feels, when you're in the middle of burnout, that your head is absolutely jam-packed full, so full of thoughts. There's not room for one single tiny other little thought, even if it's really trivial. So if you approach a burnt out person and you ask them a teeny tiny question, what are you doing at weekend? Anything like that, it's too much for them to process, and they'll just, you know, snap at you or say something really sharp. Burnt out people feel really frustrated because they know they're not performing at their optimum. They know that they're feeling tired. They know that they could do better mentally, physically, and emotionally, but they just can't get through that barrier. So it's a really frustrating state to be in. Very emotionally drained. And again, you've gone through this, instead of feeling high emotions, you've almost gone beyond that as well, in that you can sometimes feel a bit sort of disengaged emotionally. So you could have something where, you know, situation, either somebody's describing to you, or you're in the middle of a situation that's really happy, really, really fun and happy, and you don't feel it. Or it could be any other kind of emotional situation. You know, you could be watching a weepy film and nothing, whereas normally you would feel a little bit sad and weepy, and you don't feel it. So you don't feel emotionally engaged with others, really. You can blag it a little bit and pretend, but you don't actually feel it. Physically, you might have aches, pains, you know, joint aches, headaches, these types of things. You've probably got sleep disturbances. You're probably not sleeping very well. Or if you feel like you're sleeping, but, you know, you wake up tired in the morning, just as tired as when you went to bed. Might be that you're not sleeping very deeply. There's this inability to switch off. Your mind is so full that you're constantly thinking, and even if the thoughts aren't very coherent, they're a bit fuzzy, you're still like, still the cogs are whirring, and it's difficult. Things that used to enable you to switch off, whether that's just watching some rubbish telly or going for it, just a simple hack, they don't enable you to switch off anymore. You feel really tired, you're not getting any sleep, but you're also drained in other ways. So you're really, really exhausted. And it is this awful three things that you're exhausted with: the emotions, and mentally and physically. You know, you're at the end of your tether. So now that we've all probably convinced ourselves that we're all a bit burnt out, let's think about what we can actually do. So the first thing is to just spot it and to know that it's not stress. You've gone beyond stress, and it's really unpleasant, and to know that you are in that. And doing nothing is not an option. Doing nothing will just make you spiral downwards even more. So that is not an option. You can't just kind of keep soldiering on, because you will go worse and worse. So what have you got? What options have you got? What can you do? So it is going to be a massive self-care package, basically, because you are really in need. So the first thing that you can do is maybe just check in with yourself, maybe daily, first thing in the morning or last thing at night, or maybe weekly, and just so that you make sure that you have got time for you. And again, this is a non-negotiable. So you might need to put it in the diary. You may need to put that half hour, that 1 hour in the diary, so that you do not do anything else but something for you. And you need to do something for you on a daily basis. So you might be checking in weekly with yourself, but you're doing something daily to make sure that you're okay. So you need to plan what you're going to do. You need to be selfish at this point, because you are on the edge of a precipice. You have to recognize that this is important, this is serious. So you're going to be selfish to get yourself well again. So you need to say no a lot more often, because it's your health now. Think about treats. Some people associate self-care with treats, which is great, you know, but a treat tends to be a one-off. You know, you maybe go and get your back massaged, or you finally get to go to an osteo if you're a rider. Or maybe, gosh, you might get your nails done. But these types of things are not things that you're doing daily. So while they're nice, these aren't the kind of self-care things that you need to do. You need to do something. It's going to take you 20 minutes, 30 minutes every day. Just a time slot for you every single day. Now, let me give you an example of what I do. I go for a little walk. Now, it's only 20 minutes. I go on my own, and I walk actually in a circle. But you don't have to do that. You could just walk out for 10 minutes, have a little timer on your phone, and walk back for 10 minutes. And everybody's got time to do that. And what I'm doing while I'm walking is I'm not thinking about anything with any kind of importance. So I'm not thinking about work, I'm not thinking about people. I'm actually going along, and in my head, I'm describing what I can see, what I can hear, what I can feel, sometimes what I can smell. And I'm just doing that to almost deaden the chatter that would go on in my head if I didn't keep my mind distracted. So I'm just going along describing blades of grass to myself. I'm going along looking at litter. Oh, look, there's a crisp packet. Oh, look, there's a crack in the road. Oh my goodness, that's a deep puddle. And it is just this really banal, really trivial commentary as I do my walk. And it just shuts out all the things that I would be thinking about if I didn't actively think about something else. So if you want to, sing 10 green bottles, or you want to do something like that in your head, well, if you're brave enough, you could do it out loud. But you could do something like that as well, just a distraction, something that you've got to kind of think about a little bit so that you keep going with it, but just to empty your head, just on a regular basis, daily, is probably the best. And then once you're starting to make this time for yourself, it sort of is like a snowball effect. It starts to help you gain a little bit of, perspective, I suppose is the word I'm looking for, so that you can see what's important, what's not important, what's non-negotiable, but also what you could just leave off for today. Just because you're doing this in consideration of your health. So all the other things that we know we should be doing that we don't necessarily do, like eating properly and making sure we do sleep. Because in burnout you're kind of over fatigued, you're beyond sleep sometimes, but doing these little things, these little changes in habit can help your sleep patterns as well. You might need to exercise in a different way, but don't make it a chore. Don't sort of plan to go to the gym if you hate the gym, because it'll be a chore, and then it adds to the burnout, because then not only have you got all the riding that you're thinking about, and all the family and the work and everything else, but now you've got gym as well added to the list. It's another thing to juggle. So it should be something that you actually enjoy doing. It isn't a chore. It's easy. It's dead easy. Haven't even got to go in your car if you're going for a walk. So just tiny changes building up all the time. And if you need help, there are loads of experts out there, and lots of people offer free strategy calls. So if you really can't sleep, you really need someone to look at your nutrition, you really need help with maybe your mental approach or your mindset, why not give one of these experts a ring and just find out, just see what they say on this free strategy call. If you fancy, you can then book an appointment, but there's no obligation to. You could just find out what's what you could do. They can give you a few tips for free. It's just anything to get you out of this hole and helping you then to feel a little bit more you, a little bit more normal, a little bit healthier and happier. So equestrians, I think, to sum up, are really susceptible to things like burnout. I think that the sport, whether you do it professionally or as an amateur or recreational rider, you know, it's kind of like ripe for burnout. It's got all the ingredients that you would ever need. So do take care of yourselves. Let me know in the comments if you have a particularly good strategy that you use to avoid burnout, or what you might have tried in the past. And keep looking after yourself. Keep thinking about this thing that you can do that's just going to empty your head for a few minutes, 20 minutes a day, just to get you on the right track. So that's been quite a tour de force of burnout. I hope you have got some value out of that. Again, contact me if you need any advice, and I will see you next week on next week's live. So take care for now, and I will see you again soon. Bye.